There is something you still believe at 70, and it has been quietly stealing your peace. You were taught it when you were young, you repeated it through adulthood, and now it feels like truth. But it isn't. Right now, wherever you are sitting, the late afternoon light is falling at a certain angle, maybe through a window, maybe across the floor. The room is quiet, and if you place your hand on your chest, you can feel the weight of something you have been carrying for a very long time. Not grief, exactly. Not regret. Something more subtle. A belief. A story. A sentence you keep telling yourself that sounds completely reasonable and yet leaves you feeling smaller than you deserve to feel. Tonight, we are not here to learn something new. We are here to unlearn what was never true. The Buddha taught that suffering does not arise from life itself. It arises from the stories we cling to about life. And after 70 years, the most dangerous stories are not the dramatic ones. They are the quiet ones, the ones that sound like wisdom, the ones that feel like just the way things are. There are 8 of them, and one by one, we are going to lay them down. Lie. Number 1. I still have plenty of time. Time does not disappear loudly. It fades politely. Think about that for a moment. It does not announce itself. It does not send a warning. One day you are 43 and certain that some version of the life you meant to live is still just ahead. And then one morning you wake up and realize that ahead has quietly become behind, and you were so busy being busy that you never quite noticed the shift. I have spoken with many people who are in their 70s, and one of the things I hear again and again beneath the surface of what they say is this quiet ache of postponement. The conversation they meant to have with their father before he died, the trip they meant to take before the knees gave out, the words they meant to say to someone they loved before things got complicated. All of it held in a kind of mental storage room labeled later. Later. That is the word that has robbed more peace than perhaps any other word in the language. The Buddha was extraordinarily direct about this. He taught that impermanence is not a concept to be understood intellectually. It is a truth to be felt in the body, in the bones, in each breath. He watched his disciples lose friends. He watched the seasons change. He watched his own body age. And from all of this, he distilled one irreducible teaching. The present moment is the only place where life actually happens. We delay joy. We delay honesty. We delay rest. We delay the act of actually being here, in this body, on this day, as this particular person. And the reason we delay is not laziness. It is something more tender than that. It is fear. Fear that if we fully arrive in this moment, we will have to admit how much has already passed. How many laters have already expired? But here is what I want to offer you instead. What if arriving fully in this moment is not an admission of loss, but an act of reclamation? You cannot recover the years behind you. No one can. But you can refuse to postpone the ones ahead. If there is a person you love who does not know it, tell them, not next week, not when things calm down, now. If there is a place you have always wanted to sit quietly and watch the sun move across the water, go there. If there is a version of a Tuesday afternoon that feels like the life you actually want, stop waiting for permission to live it. Ask yourself this slowly. If not now, then when? The honest answer, if you stay with it long enough, is that there may not be a when, and that is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to free you. I think about a woman I once heard described at a meditation retreat. She was in her mid-70s and had spent the better part of 20 years planning to visit the village in Ireland where her grandmother had been born. She had the address written on a piece of paper in her bedside drawer. She had looked up the train routes. She had even picked out the month, October, because she loved the way the light looked in photographs of the Irish countryside in autumn. But something always came first. A grandchild's birthday. A health scare. The practical weight of ordinary life. She never made the trip, not because she ran out of time exactly, but because she kept choosing the safer version of the moment, the version that waited. And by the time she understood clearly what she had been doing, her health had changed enough that travel was no longer easy. I do not tell that story to generate fear. I tell it because something in that story is recognizable, is it not? We all have our version of the October trip to Ireland, the thing we are absolutely going to do, once. The Buddha's teaching on momentariness reminds us that this very second is a complete moment in itself. It does not exist to be a stepping stone to a better moment. It is not practice for the real thing. This is the real thing. The cup of tea you are holding right now, the window you are looking through, the breath moving through your body without any effort or intention on your part, simply because life has not finished with you yet. That is your invitation, not a deadline, an invitation. Lie number 2. If I keep sacrificing, I will be loved. Sacrifice does not guarantee love. It only guarantees exhaustion. This is the lie that most people at 70 carry most quietly, because it does not feel like a lie. It feels like virtue. It feels like devotion. It feels like what a good mother does, what a good father does, what a good spouse does, what a good person does. You gave. For decades, you gave. You rearranged your own needs to accommodate the needs of everyone around you. You swallowed your opinions at the dinner table. You took the smaller portion. You chose the cheaper thing. You cancelled your own plans. You stayed up late and woke up early and gave your best hours to people and institutions and obligations, trusting that this accumulation of sacrifice would eventually be returned to you in the form of love, appreciation, security, recognition. And sometimes it was, but often it was not. And when it was not, when the sacrifice was simply absorbed and expected and never acknowledged, something inside you quietly cracked, not enough to break, just enough to ache. Louis Richmond, a Buddhist teacher who spent decades working with aging populations, observed that many older adults carry what he called the exhaustion of invisible giving. Not the tiredness of the body, but the tiredness of a soul that has spent years giving without being seen. The Buddha's teaching here is not that we should stop giving. The Dharma is not a permission slip for selfishness. It is something more precise than that. It is the teaching that giving from depletion is not generosity. It is a form of suffering disguised as virtue. True generosity, what the Buddha called dana, comes from fullness. It comes from a heart that has first given to itself enough stillness, enough rest, enough care, that it naturally overflows. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. We have all heard that. But most of us have spent our entire lives trying. Here is the hard truth. Love that requires your erasure is not love. It is dependency wearing love's clothing. The people in your life who only feel cared for when you are diminishing yourself, they do not need more of your sacrifice. They need you to model something different, something healthier, something that says, I am here, fully, as a whole person, and I love you from that wholeness. And here is the tenderness in this. You were not wrong to want to be loved through your giving. That is a deeply human longing. But at 70, you deserve to ask yourself whether the method is working, whether it ever really worked. And if the answer is complicated, that is not a failure. It is clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. You get to choose how you give from here. Lie number 3. It's too late to change. You are not too old to change. You are too conditioned to imagine change. Notice the difference. Those are not the same thing at all. The idea that change becomes impossible after a certain age is one of the most quietly destructive beliefs in the culture around aging. Research in neuroplasticity has shown that the brain retains the capacity for new learning and structural adaptation well into old age. The brain does not calcify. It responds. It adjusts. It grows new connections when asked to. What changes as we age is not the capacity for transformation, but the comfort with it. Because change is uncomfortable. At 25, discomfort feels exciting. At 70, it can feel threatening. And so we tell ourselves the more palatable story. It is not that I am unwilling, it is that it is simply too late. But the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree at 35. Some of his most devoted disciples came to him as old men and old women, exhausted from decades of living in ways that had not brought them peace. And he welcomed every single one of them. He never once turned to someone and said, "You have lived too long in the wrong direction. You cannot turn around now." There is a teaching in the Theravada tradition about a monk named Angulimala who had lived as a killer before coming to the Dharma. If transformation were only available to the young, what would that story mean? What would any story of transformation mean? Change at 70 does not look like starting over. It looks like stopping. Stopping the habit that has never served you. Stopping the relationship pattern you learned before you knew better. Stopping the interior voice that speaks to you in criticism. Stopping the act of carrying what no longer belongs to you. That is not a grand reinvention. It is something quieter and more dignified than that. It is the simple act of choosing, today, to live even 10% more honestly than yesterday. A Buddhist teacher once described it this way. She said, "The door to change is always the same size. It does not get smaller with age. Only our fear of what is on the other side changes." So ask yourself, what small door have you been standing in front of, telling yourself it is sealed? And what would happen if you simply pushed it open? Lie number 4. My worth depends on being useful. You are not a tool. You are a life. I want to say that again slowly, because this particular lie has done more damage to people over 70 than almost any other. You are not a tool. You are a life. We live in a culture that measures human worth almost entirely through productivity. What do you do? That is among the first questions strangers ask each other. Not who are you, not what do you love, not what have you survived. What do you do? And the answer to that question becomes, over decades, the primary architecture of a person's sense of self. Research in gerontology has consistently documented what happens when that architecture is removed, when the work ends, when the children leave, when the roles that defined a person's usefulness disappear. Many older adults experience not just adjustment, but something closer to identity collapse, not because they are weak, but because they were never given a different story about what makes a person matter. The Buddha taught something radical, that the intrinsic value of a human being has nothing to do with output. It has nothing to do with how much you produce, how much you contribute, how many people depend on you. The Buddha taught that your existence itself is the value. Your awareness, your capacity for kindness, your ability to sit quietly with another person and simply be present, these are not lesser things than productivity. They are the whole point. Think about the last time you sat with someone who was grieving and did nothing except stay. You did not fix anything. You did not produce anything. And yet in that moment, you gave something that no amount of productivity could replicate. At 70, the cultural narrative says you are entering a period of diminishing returns. The Dharma says something different. It says you are entering a period of ripening. The fruit does not need to keep growing to be valuable. It needs to soften, to become what it always had the potential to be. Psychologists studying what they call ego integrity in later life have found that the elders who age with the greatest peace are not the ones who remain maximally productive. They are the ones who find a way to locate their worth in being rather than doing, in presence rather than output, in the quality of their attention rather than the quantity of their accomplishments. Your value has never required a job description. It has never required a full calendar. It has never required someone to need you. There is something I have noticed about the elders who seem most at peace. They are rarely the ones still grinding. They are the ones who have made a quiet internal shift, a shift from asking what can I produce to asking what can I notice, what can I receive, what can I simply be present for. A grandfather who sits at the table and listens, who does not check his phone, who laughs slowly and asks real questions. That grandfather is doing something of enormous value. It cannot be put on a resume. It cannot be measured in output. But every person who has had a grandparent like that carries something from it for the rest of their lives. A grandmother who has learned to sit with herself without needing to be useful, who has found a kind of companionship with her own mind that she spent her whole productive life too busy to develop. She is modeling something that most of the people around her desperately need to see. Presence. Unhurried presence. In a world that has never been more addicted to speed, the person who knows how to be still is not diminished. They are rare. They are needed. They are offering something the culture is starving for. You are enough. Resting. You are enough. Simply sitting. You are enough. Lie number 5. If I let go, everything will fall apart. Things fall apart anyway. You just get tired holding them. I have a certain tenderness for this lie because it comes from love. The need to control the outcomes of the people and situations we love does not come from selfishness. It comes from fear. Fear that if we loosen our grip, something precious will shatter. Something irreplaceable will slip away. So we hold tighter. We manage. We monitor. We advise, even when no one asked. We worry on behalf of people who are not worrying on their own behalf, as if our anxiety can somehow compensate for their lack of it. And the result is not protection. The result is exhaustion and often resentment on all sides. The Buddha described the tight fist of control as one of the most seductive forms of suffering because it feels productive, it feels responsible, it looks like care from the outside, but inside, it is a kind of terror dressed as competence. Consider what you are actually holding when you grip this tightly. You are holding the image of your child's life as you believe it should look. You are holding the reputation you built over decades. You are holding the outcome of a conversation you cannot control. You are holding tomorrow, which has not arrived, and last year, which is already gone. None of these things are actually in your hands. They never were. The holding is a story, not a fact. Pema Chodron, the Tibetan Buddhist teacher, writes about what she calls groundlessness, the terrifying and ultimately liberating realization that nothing is ever as stable as we pretend, that the ground beneath our feet has always been more like water than like stone, and that learning to swim rather than frantically searching for solid footing, is the actual skill required for life. What would happen if you released one thing today? Just one. The worry about your adult child's choices, the anxiety about what the neighbors think, the need to resolve something that may simply not be resolvable right now. What would happen is not collapse. What would happen is space. Space for something else to breathe. Space for you to breathe. Control is the heaviest illusion, and you have been carrying it for a very long time. Lie number 6. My family will always understand me. Understanding is a gift, not a guarantee. This is the soft one, the one that hurts in a quiet way, like a bruise you keep accidentally pressing. Most of us came to our families with a deep and wordless expectation that the people who share our blood, who ate at the same table, who witnessed our lives from the inside, would naturally understand us. Not perfectly, but fundamentally, that they would see us. And sometimes they do, but often, in ways that are hard to name and harder to admit, they do not. Your children see you through the lens of who you were when they were small. Your siblings carry versions of you that stopped updating sometime in the 1980s. Even your spouse, the person who has slept beside you for 40 years, may be in relationship with a story about you more than with the living, changing person you are today. This is not a failure of love. It is simply what happens when human beings try to know each other across the vast distance of separate inner lives. The Buddhist concept of interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh described it, teaches that we are all deeply connected. But connection does not mean transparency. We are connected the way the ocean is connected to every wave, and yet each wave has its own arc, its own height, its own moment of breaking and receding. You are a wave in a sea of waves. Your family members are waves. You move together. You are made of the same water. And you do not always travel in the same direction or at the same speed. When your children cannot understand why you feel lonely despite being surrounded by people, that is not cruelty. It is the natural limit of any mind's ability to inhabit another mind's experience. What hurts is not the misunderstanding itself. What hurts is the expectation that understanding was owed to you, that it was guaranteed by proximity or history or shared DNA. Release that expectation, not with bitterness, but with a kind of mature love that says, I love you, and I do not need you to fully comprehend me in order for that to be true. I can hold my own inner life. I can seek understanding from other sources. I can find the community of people who speak the same language as my soul. This is not giving up on family, it is growing up within it. Line number 7, peace will come later. Later is the most dangerous word after 70. Think about how many times in your life you have arranged yourself around a future peace. Once the children are grown, I will rest. Once the mortgage is paid, I will breathe. Once retirement comes, I will finally have time for what matters. Once things settle down, I will begin to live the way I actually want to live. And here you are, on the other side of most of those thresholds. And the peace, if it has arrived patchily, briefly, between one set of concerns and the next. Because peace is not a destination, it is not a reward dispensed after sufficient suffering. It is not something that accumulates in a pension account and becomes available to you after a certain number of years of hard labor. The Buddha taught that peace, what he called santi, is available in any moment. Not because the moment is perfect, not because the problems have been resolved, but because the mind can, with practice, choose to rest in the ground beneath all the noise rather than on the surface of it. This is not passive acceptance. It is not surrender. It is something more precise. It is the recognition that waiting for circumstances to align before allowing yourself to be at peace is a trap with no exit. Circumstances will always be imperfect. There will always be one more thing to resolve, one more worry to carry, one more reason to postpone. The mind that waits for peace to arrive from outside is like a room waiting for the sun to enter through a window that is permanently shuttered. The sun is not the problem. The shutter is the problem, and you, only you, can open it. What would it mean to practice peace today? Not to achieve it, not to feel it perfectly, simply to practice it. To sit for 10 minutes in the morning before the day takes over. To take one breath that is not recruited into the service of worry. To notice, for even a few seconds, that beneath the noise of your life, there is a stillness that has been there all along, waiting patiently, completely unbothered by how long you took to notice it. Peace is not scheduled, it is practiced, and you can begin right now, in this moment, as you are. Lie number 8. I must carry what hurts me. You were allowed to put it down. You just never gave yourself permission. We have come to the last one, and it may be the heaviest. Over 70 years, you have accumulated a collection of burdens that were never really yours to carry indefinitely. Old resentments toward people who wronged you and may not even be alive anymore. Old mistakes you made in moments of fear or exhaustion or ignorance that have been dragged like stones through every decade since. Old identities, the version of you who failed, who disappointed, who was not enough, who said the wrong thing at the worst possible moment. Identities that stopped being accurate a long time ago, but that you have kept alive through the sheer force of guilt. There is also something else that people carry and rarely name: the old image, the person they were supposed to be, the life that was supposed to happen, the marriage that was supposed to last, or the career that was supposed to unfold differently, or the relationship with a child that was supposed to be warmer, the ghost of an unlived life, haunting the edges of the life that actually happened. All of this is weight. Enormous, unearned, unnecessary weight. The Buddhist tradition offers a teaching about what happens when we hold on to hurt. It is sometimes described as drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. The resentment you carry towards someone who wronged you 20 years ago does not touch them. It lives in you. It runs through your nervous system. It colors the mornings that have nothing to do with them. It shrinks the space available for joy. But here is what I want to say carefully, because this is not about pretending the hurt was not real. It was real. Whatever happened to you, whatever you did or failed to do, whatever was done to you, it was real. I am not asking you to minimize it. I am asking you to consider whether the continued carrying of it is serving you or hurting you. There is a story from the Buddhist tradition about a monk who asked his teacher how to forgive someone who had wronged him deeply. The teacher said, "Every morning when you wake up, you pick up a stone and put it in your pocket for every person you have not forgiven. After years of this, notice what you are carrying when you try to walk." The monk sat with this for a long time. Then he said, "But teacher, what if the other person never apologizes?" And the teacher said, "The stone does not care whether they apologize. Only your pocket does." I have thought about that story many times, because it gets at something that we often get backwards. We imagine that releasing the hurt requires something from the person who caused it: an apology, an acknowledgement, a reckoning, and sometimes those things come, but often they do not. And to make your own peace conditional on someone else's behavior is to hand them a power over your interior life that they do not deserve and that you cannot afford to give. The Buddhist teacher Ajahn Chah described forgiveness as not something we do for the person who hurt us. We do it for ourselves. We lay down the stone not to excuse the person who gave it to us, but because our hand is tired. Because we have other things to do with our hands now. Because the stone is heavy and the road ahead is shorter than it used to be, and we would rather walk it lightly. You are allowed to put it down. The old story about who you were, the old grievance about what should have been, the old punishment you have been administering to yourself for something that is finished. You were allowed to put it down years ago. No one told you that, and I am so sorry for that, but you know it now. Closing the quiet collapse of what was never true. Nothing dramatic happens when you stop believing a lie. That is worth sitting with for a moment, because I think many people imagine that releasing a long-held belief should feel like an earthquake, like something shattering, like a grand interior event. But it is rarely like that. What actually happens is quieter. What collapses is not you. What collapses is only the tension, the subtle, chronic tension of holding a story in place that never quite fit the actual shape of your life. The lie that time is infinite, laid down, what remains is the preciousness of this afternoon. The lie that sacrifice earns love, laid down, what remains is the possibility of giving from wholeness rather than from depletion. The lie that it is too late, laid down, what remains is the surprising aliveness of this particular moment. The lie that worth requires usefulness, laid down, what remains is the simple dignity of existing. The lie that control protects, laid down, what remains is rest. The lie that family must understand you, laid down, what remains is a love that does not require proof. The lie that peace comes later, laid down, what remains is the doorway to now. The lie that you must carry what hurts you, laid down, what remains is your own two open hands. I have been thinking about something Louis Richmond, the Buddhist teacher, once said about aging. He said that every breath is a new chance. That part of what aging asks of us is to stop being people who believe there are no more new chances, no more beginnings, no more mornings that contain the possibility of something different. I believe he is right. Not because everything can be fixed, not because loss is not real, but because the mind that is willing to unlearn a lie is the mind that remains alive, genuinely alive, not just breathing, but awake. So tonight, after this is over, I want to invite you to do something very simple. Sit quietly for a few minutes. You do not need to meditate formally or follow any particular technique. Just sit. Let the room be what it is. Let the evening settle around you. And then ask yourself, without judgment, without urgency, which of these 8 lies has been with me the longest? You do not need to do anything about the answer. Not yet. Simply acknowledge it. Give it a name. Notice the weight of it. And then, on an exhale, imagine setting it down beside your chair. Not throwing it away, not destroying it, simply no longer carrying it. Simply letting your hands be empty for a moment. That is enough. That small act of recognition is enough to begin. You are not losing anything tonight. You are becoming lighter. Slowly, the way all real change happens. Breath by breath, truth by truth. The room is quiet. The evening is here. And you, exactly as you are, With everything you have carried and everything you are finally setting down, you are enough. Release, soften, return.